to bring attention to what is an increasingly urgent and dangerous situation. Now that relates entirely to the militarized ICE efforts to arrest immigrants who are here lawfully, and to whisk them down south for expedited deportation that would break the law. One of the things that this new policy has done is created a shortage of places to hold these non-criminal, non-violent civilians who are trying to immigrate to this country, as so many have before. And so what we have learned is that ICE and the federal government, in coordination with the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons, is relocating detainees, immigration detainees, to the MDC here. Now, this is not the first time we've been in front of the MDC, which has a very well-established record of being incredibly unsafe, inhumane, cruel, even to the point where federal judges call the conditions in the MDC barbaric and have refused to send convicted criminals here because those conditions are so bad. And yet the Trump administration is now sending non-criminal, non-charged, non-violent immigrants, many of whom have ongoing asylum cases, to be detained in this place where federal judges will not send convicted criminals. They're doing that because there is no room anywhere else for this disgusting mass deportation policy that, once again, is not targeting convicted criminals, but is targeting so many community members, spouses of citizens, parents of citizens, people trying to immigrate to this country to pursue the American dream and trying to do it the right way under the law. Last week, I wrote a letter to the head of the Bureau of Prisons demanding answers, asking for an immediate suspension of all transfers of ICE detainees to the MDC and to any other federal prison, to understand what exactly the agreement is between ICE and the Bureau of Prisons. Who is paying for the staffing for these ICE detainees? Part of the reason why the MDC has been in such terrible, terrible condition is it is grossly understaffed. And because it's understaffed, it is unable to keep everyone safe. It has required numerous lockdowns just simply because of shortage of staffing. The Biden administration added a 35% retention bonus at the end of that administration, which increased the staffing significantly here and made the conditions much better. When Donald Trump came in, his administration yanked that retention bonus, and staffing has now gone down. So who's paying? Because the Bureau of Prisons doesn't have money to pay for its own staff, for its own detainees, much less ICE detainees. We want answers to those questions. And we want to know where the money will be coming from now that the Republicans jammed through a bill that takes away health care and food benefits to millions and millions of Americans, but increases ICE's budget for detention by $45 billion. Who is going to pay for this? This is just yet another example of ICE's lawless, un-American, inhumane treatment of people trying to seek the American dream, trying to immigrate to this country like so many of New Yorkers have, 40%, and so many of our ancestors and descendants have. This is dangerous, it's lawless, and it's unacceptable. And so we are here out in front of the MDC to demand answers from the Bureau of Prisons, from the Department of Justice, from the Department of Homeland Security. they owe us answers. They owe me, as a member of Congress, answers as I conduct oversight, both constitutionally authorized and statutorily obligated oversight. But they mostly owe answers to New Yorkers and to the American people for what they are doing, why they are doing it, and how they are doing it. Let's remember, immigrants are our neighbors. They're parents, they're workers working here with work authorization, paying taxes, paying into the Social Security Trust Fund, and they're community members who deserve to be treated with dignity. If immigrants have committed a crime, they should be deported. But that is not what is happening. These are our community members being yanked from their families unsuspectingly and deceptively, and it must stop, and it certainly must stop treating them as if they were criminals. I thank my colleagues for being here, and I want to turn it over to State Senator Andrew Gounardes, who's been a terrific advocate on these issues.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm State Senator Andrew Gounardes from the 26th District, including right here in Sunset Park, and including the MDC facility behind me. Let's remember, as the Congressman pointed out, federal judges have called this building behind us barbaric. Barbaric. We don't use that term in our everyday discourse. We save that term for conditions that are beyond the pale. It conjures up images of people fighting on battlefields 1,000 years ago, slaughtering each other, right? Beyond the pale of what civilized society would tolerate. Barbaric. These are the conditions that are currently being experienced by inmates being held at this facility behind us right now. And that in of itself should be a reason for us to be out here in outrage. But particularly because this facility is now being used to detain immigrants, many of whom have not committed a crime. There was just reporting this morning that more than 2,000 people have been detained by ICE this year in New York City, 50% of whom have no criminal history. And they're being detained in a facility that we are labeling as barbaric. And not only that, we also have credible reports that people being detained here are being denied their opportunity to speak to their lawyers. So we have a facility where people who are not being charged with a crime are being detained without access to legal representation. That is a violation of due process. That is unconstitutional, not to mention illegal. So we are demanding answers here. I should also add that this facility has not had a community advisory meeting as they're required to in God knows how long, that all local offices used to participate in. And ever since we called out their inhumane conditions when they didn't have heat in this building for a week, have not held these meetings to the public and to the community to ensure that they're being held accountable. We are demanding answers. We are here to bear witness to what is happening behind these walls as best as we can. And we are here to say this will not happen on our watch. This will not happen in our name. And we will continue to be here to call out these atrocious conditions at every level of government, both in elected office and community partners the same. Because this should not be allowed to happen. This must not be allowed to happen, and we will continue to call out these gross violations, human rights violations, and inhumane violations that are happening to people who are here with a legal right to be here without any criminal background, without any criminal accusations, but for the fact that they are here trying to build a better life for themselves and their families, as my grandfather did 100 years ago when he came to this country. And by the way, the same language we see the administration use to describe immigrants today is nothing new. It's the same thing they said about immigrants 100 years ago and beyond that. It's the same old story, tale as old as time, over and over again. Immigrants do not make us less safe. Immigrants add to the prosperity of our communities. Immigrants add to the vibrant diversity of our communities. Immigrants are the backbone of the New York story, of the American story, and let us never forget that. So I want to thank our congressman. I want to thank my colleagues who have joined here. And now I'm going to call up my colleague in Albany, Assemblymember Bobby Carroll. Bobby?
good morning, and thank you, Andrew, thank you, Congressman Goldman, and thank you to all the advocates who are bringing us here today. So many of us stood out here on a cold day in February in 2019 when the heat went out in this building. It took the Attorney General, the state legislature, congressional representatives to go into that building to make sure the heat was turned back on. That's why we're here today. We are worried about the inhumane and barbaric conditions in that prison, but most of all, we are concerned about the due process and the 100 human beings, most of whom have never committed a crime, most of whom are being denied due process, to make sure they are given the justice and the humanity that they deserve. Because of course, they very much are somebody's brother, sister, mother, father, son, or daughter. They deserve that. And instilled in our Constitution and our way of law is simple due process. That is not what they are receiving right now. They are receiving medieval-style, barbaric conditions and a lack of rule of law. We don't need black sites in Brooklyn. We need to make sure that these 100 individuals get their due process and that they get released. We need to have these individuals released. They deserve their day in court. We need to stand witness to this until they're released. And again, I thank all the advocates. I thank my colleague, Andrew Gounardes. I thank my other colleague, Dan Goldman, for bringing us here together to make sure that we are here to bear witness. Thank you.
Now we're going to call up one of our community partners, Mixteca, and speaking on behalf of Mixteca is their Executive Director, Lorena Carusius. Lorena?
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for standing with us, with our people. I'm Lorena Carusias, the Executive Director of Mixteca organization. Mixteca has been in this community for 25 years. We work with the community that is trying to thrive, is thriving in this community, is helping this community to thrive and to be better. Many of the people that we work with they escape violence. They are here to protect their families, and they are here to seek for a better life. Many of them come into our facility to request support, to request mental health, because they have to heal from the trauma of immigration. Because escaping violence, to face more violence when they are traveling to the city, to this city, just to get here to face more violence is not a simple situation. It's heavy for them and for their families. They come into us to request mental health support. They come into us because they wanted to learn English. They come into us because they wanted to go back to work, because they are here to make this city a better city. Many of our neighbors are now scared, afraid of going out, especially because this facility is now hosting our people, our neighbors, our friends. And they are even more scared right now, affecting the economy of this place, affecting what is happening in our community. This is not only unsafe inside, but it's making our community unsafe. Our neighbors are afraid, and we all should be afraid of what is happening here. And I just want to remind all of you that this is 2025. And this is been happening for many, many years. And I wanted to say that we are here to say that putting immigrants in detention center is not a solution. So the question is why? If this is not a solution, why our people are being put in here? What is broken here is not our people. What is broken is the system. The system is broken. The system that provides support for one people with money and deny the support for others. The basic needs for every American here. And here I'm not talking about only the immigrant community, because The ones that are now challenged by the changes are not the immigrant community that, let me be clear, they don't qualify for the services that many people qualify here. And what is being cut right now, it's for every American. So I will say that we never gonna be safe if we all are safe, regardless of our immigration status. And today I want to tell you a little about the story of Bulmaro Flores. Bulmaro Flores was detained on June 20 when he was doing his immigration checkup. He's applying for some immigration case, and I'm not a lawyer and I won't mention this exactly what is mentioned. But Bulmaro was detained, and during a week, as many people here were denied the first call. Calling his wife took him a week. After a week, he was able to call his wife and letting her know that he was detained. And don't forget this one, he is in a case and he was detained in court when his case was observed, following all the steps, because as our elected officials mention, our people are not criminals. People that are detained are people that are doing it the right way. And people are here detained and exposed to these inhumane situations just because they are following the steps. There are no criminals. Bulmaro has 2 children, 2 American-born children, has a wife, and one of those 2 children has special needs. Bulmaro is the only person that provides for that family. And now Bulmaro is in Texas because he was transferred quickly to another state to disconnect him for the network and from his family. That's the case of many of our immigrants here. And I just want to say again that our immigrants are not broken. Which are broken is the system. Nuestro sistema no está roto. Nuestra comunidad no es la que está rota. Lo que está roto es el sistema migratorio que dice que tiene una manera de migrar a este país y que si lo haces de la manera adecuada, tú puedes tener los beneficios de poder estar en un país seguro. Las comunidades que están migrando a este país son personas que están escapando de violencia en sus países, solamente para enfrentar más violencia en el proceso migratorio y para llegar aquí y ser víctimas de más violencia. Nuestras comunidades vienen a hacer este país mejor. Yo soy una persona migrante. Llegué aquí hace más de 10 años. El día de hoy soy la directora ejecutiva de una organización que ayuda a otras personas, migrantes o no migrantes. Personas que requieren aplicar a beneficios públicos pueden venir a Mixteca. Personas que quieren encontrar trabajo pueden venir a Mixteca. Personas que necesitan atención de salud mental pueden venir a Mixteca. Eso es lo que hacemos ahora. Mis compañeras aquí y aquellas personas que no pudieron venir hoy porque están con miedo de venir a lugares como este o porque han vivido tantos traumas que venir a lugares como este les resulta traumático, también están aquí the right way. Solamente voy a mencionar en español a Bulmaro Flores, un ejemplo de una persona que fue a su cita en la corte y fue detenida y durante casi una semana le negaron la primera llamada a la que todos tenemos derecho. Ahora está en Texas, está tratando de luchar su caso. Él es el padre de 2 niños que nacieron aquí, tiene a su esposa y es el único que provee por esa familia. Y este es un ejemplo de miles de ejemplos que pasan cada día. Nuestras comunidades aquí en Sunset Park, aquí alrededor, tienen miedo de venir aquí cerca, porque este lugar está deteniendo migrantes, porque lo están utilizando ni siquiera para aquellas personas que han cometido crímenes graves, sino para tener a nuestra comunidad migrante. Y el día de hoy estamos realmente llamando la atención para que esto cambie. No podemos seguir aquí y no podemos olvidar quiénes somos y de dónde venimos. We can't forget who we are and where we are coming from. Because if you are not an immigrant, I'm sure someone in your family is an immigrant. And here we are to demand the system to correct and do the things the right way. And we're going to be here until that is happening. And thank you. Gracias.
We're also joined by representatives from two of our colleagues who couldn't be there themselves. We have Andrew from Senator Salazar's office, and then we'll hear from Ali from Councilmember Hanif's office.
Thanks very much. My name is Andrew Block. I'm Chief of Staff to State Senator Julia Salazar, who represents North Brooklyn and part of Queens. Very much of our district has immigrant families, long-standing and new, and we stand in solidarity with them today and forever. We want to say that what is happening behind us is federal lawlessness. It is not just unconstitutional, it is anti-constitutional. Indeed, it is un-American. The federal government currently is seeking to shred the rule of law, if not by declaring martial law and suspending the Constitution outright, then by chipping away at it. What we see is the federal government ignoring judges' orders, intervening at the site of the judiciary, that is to say our courts themselves, and ignoring the law outright. That is wrong, and it has a direct impact on our communities, our neighbors, our friends, our families, our colleagues, and it simply cannot continue. Senator Salazar has very little faith that the Trump administration is going to listen to reason and the law. Nonetheless, we greatly appreciate the efforts of the congressmen and our colleagues in the legislature to rein in these lawless acts and decisions. And in the meantime, we are seeking to act at the state level to mitigate the harm the federal government is causing to our communities. That includes New York for All, which the prime sponsor of which is Senator Gounardes. We thank you for your leadership and join you enthusiastically in promoting this bill, which would drastically limit the degree to which local government can collaborate with ICE. Additionally, Senator Salazar is the prime sponsor of Dignity Not Detention, which would prohibit any correctional facilities at the local level, not to mention the state level, from contracting with ICE for detention. We seek to pass both of these bills in addition to another bill, Representation for All, which would ensure that New Yorkers have representation, legal representation in court for immigration proceedings. These are some of the acts that we can do short of federal intervention. But that being said, we must intervene in the federal government's lawless, anti-constitutional, un-American conduct. And at the end of the day, what that may involve is us not only standing up and speaking out, but putting our bodies on the line. And that is why Senator Salazar has joined with other lawmakers in descending on 26 Federal Plaza, where immigration proceedings take place, to escort migrants in our communities to their court appearances and ensure that they are safe from the intervention of massed ICE agents seeking to tear them from their families, detain them in places like MDC where they encounter, just as we've said, the most barbaric conditions, and then who knows what's next for them. So thank you to the Congressman, thank you Senator, thank you Assemblymember. We join you in solidarity. Thank you to Mixteca for your leadership as well, and the fight continues. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Ali Boifab from Councilmember Shahana Hanif's office. Thank you so much to Senator Gounardes, Congressmember Goldman, and Assemblymember Carroll, and to everyone else who is here for putting this critical event together. The Trump administration's family separation agenda is shameful. The human toll, the moral toll it is taking on our nation is unacceptable. Brooklyn is a beacon of immigrant rights. The atrocities that are taking place inside that facility right now are unacceptable. MDC, as we have heard so far, is incapable of housing detainees. It's incapable of housing the individuals that have been housed thus long. It's incapable of housing additional individuals there. I want to note that we need to do more for our immigrant community, both at the state and at the local level. All of us here are working on the ground to make sure our immigrant communities are empowered and they have the support they need to get through this difficult time. We're hosting pro se clinics, we're hosting Know Your Rights workshop, and are doing our best because at this moment, community power is something we need as well. Councilmember Hanif's bill, the New York City Trust Act, is meant to curb ICE collaboration with New York City agencies. We have sanctuary laws, but this bill is intended to strengthen them as much as possible. Unfortunately, the legislature has not passed it yet. We're going to keep fighting fiercely to ensure that this law passes, so we have additional protection for our immigrant community members. And on the other end, as we've heard, on the state level, New York for All Act and Dignity Not Detention Act will rectify and provide additional protections for our immigrant communities at the state level. Immigrants like myself, immigrants like Councilmember Shahana Hanif, immigrants like our neighbors, we're all New Yorkers, and we deserve due process, we deserve dignity, and we deserve to be empowered. That's why we're here, that's why we're all here, and I thank everyone for taking this step to empower our immigrant communities. Thank you so much.